If you think limitation is a dirty word, if you think talking about limitation doesn't sound very abundant, this message is for you. Because believe it or not, it's actually our avoidance of limitation that perpetuates scarcity, that actually creates stress and pressure and discomfort and dis-ease in our lives. It's our inability to accept and embrace limitation that robs us of the well-being and true abundance that we're all meant to have. And I'm going to bet you can totally relate to the example I'm about to share. So imagine that you're at a fantastic meal. Oh my gosh, the food is so good. Maybe it's at a friend's house, maybe it's at a restaurant with a bunch of friends, but the food is just incredible. It tastes so good. And so you have that appetizer and a little bit more of that appetizer. And then you have the soup to begin the meal. And then you have some salad to begin the meal. And it tastes so good. And you're having so much fun with your friends and you're drinking some good wine, perhaps. And then comes the main course. And it's so good. It's so good. And you're just so enjoying it. And this food is tasting so good. And you're feeling so satisfied. And then it's time for dessert. And oh, the dessert menu. Oh, it looks so good, so scrumptious. So you have to order some dessert, maybe cheesecake or something like that. And it tastes really good. And then somebody else at your table they ordered dessert and maybe it was tiramisu or something like that, but they couldn't finish it. And it's like, oh, you should try it. You'll love it. So you finish the rest of their tiramisu. And it did taste good, but now you're not feeling so good. Like your stomach's starting to feel hard and bloated and you're starting to feel uncomfortable and you're starting to think, oh, I shouldn't have had that tiramisu. In fact, maybe I shouldn't have had the cheesecake. But you got so caught up to it tasting good in the moment that you weren't aware of, didn't honor the natural limit of your body and how much food it really needs and how much food it can digest with ease. You didn't honor that limit and go, this meal's been great. I'm now satisfied. I'm full, but not overfull. I'm no longer hungry and I'm not overfilled. I'm just right. There's the point of abundance. So often we think that the antidote to scarcity, not enough deficiency, is like abundance, plenty, quantity, like over. But it's really that point of sufficiency. And the only way you can experience that perfect point of sufficiency is if you're willing to honor limits. That's true in your relationship with money. How often have you created unnecessary scarcity, stress, pressure on yourself because it's like, I'm just going to spend it. I'm just going to spend it because it's so good or it's such a good deal or it's all that sort of stuff. And you didn't honor the limit you had of this is how much money I have. We do it with food. We do it with binge watching on television or TV shows where the first episode is really fun and the second episode is really good. And then we're like, well, let me stay up and binge some more. But then the next day we're like tired and exhausted and we wish we hadn't stayed up so late getting caught on it. And then we beat ourselves up because we shouldn't have binge watched and we didn't get those other things that we wanted to get done. Limits, my friend, are part of the natural world. They're part of being human. There are limits. And when we individually do not honor those real limits, they may be temporary limits. Like, I finished eating that dinner and I'm full. That's a temporary limit. I'm going to be hungry again later in the day or the next day. So it's a temporary limit, but it is a limit. When we don't recognize and honor those, we create dis-ease and stress and pressure in our own lives, but we also block the flow of available resources to others because we've overconsumed. And so now we don't have, there aren't leftovers to share with others. Limits. I know you probably don't like to hear this. You want to think like, oh, there's unlimited abundance and I can have whatever I imagine and dream or whatever. Not true. Not healthy. Even if you get a lot, you're creating scarcity in ways you may not realize. Limits is not a dirty word, my friend. Honoring limits actually supports well-being, supports abundance. Now, a quick note. Those are real limits. There are limits we create up here about ourselves, about what we deserve, about what we can have, about what we're able to do and our capacity. Those limits, they may be getting in the way of you embracing and honoring and accepting true limits. So limits is not a dirty word. When it's real, temporary, natural limits, honoring those supports well-being and abundance. And when it's limits that are about up here that you've made up, then it's not a dirty word either, because you need to like become aware of those so you can release those limits. See, those are the limits that would have you be at the feast with all this great food, and you'd walk away from the table still hungry. That's not abundance either, my friend. And so I ask you, how is your relationship with limits, your reaction to limits? You're not honoring limits. You're believing in limits that are not accurate. How might that actually be blocking you from the experience of well-being, fulfillment, satisfaction, health, and abundance that you really long for and are meant to experience? And how might your relationship with limits or your reaction to limits be unintentionally not just perpetuating scarcity in your life, but scarcity in the world around you? I invite you to think about it. I'd love to hear your response.